All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're looking at a couple of examples of taking cube groups. So we have to remember some of our rules. One of those rules says if there's a negative inside of our radical, then our root must be odd. In this case, it works, it happens. So that means my answer down here needs to include a negative sign. Now, here's the nice thing. As soon as I know that, and I realize that I'm having a coefficient and I'm having this radical, it kind of frees me up to sit there and say, what I really am looking for is looking at groups of 3 for 128. What I mean by it frees me up is I don't have to worry about real numbers. I don't have to worry about imaginary numbers like mentioned before. I just have to worry about groups of 3 for 128. Now, I know from experience, because I've also memorized cubes up to a certain point. I don't remember them all. But 5 cubed is 125. 120 is really close, but that means 6 cubed is really up there and a lot further away. So the answer is going to be 5 and some very small decimal. But I don't want to do the decimal. I'm not estimating. I want to be able to represent it with a radical. So I'm going to take this, and I know this is divided by 2, and I'm going to get 64. Oh, good. 64 I can split to 8 and 8. Now that's important not because I'm taking out 8s, because this isn't about a square root, it's about a cube root. But what I do know is 8 is the same thing as 2 cubed. And I have 2 of those, 2 cubed. There we go. Now what that means is, if I take the cube root of a cube, or this basically means I have a group 3 within a group of 2s, so I'm going to take this 2 and this 2, and I'm going to take them outside of the radical. And since they're multiplied inside the radical, they have to remain inside of the radical. But this guy's all alone. It's not in a group, so it's got to stay in my radical. Well, 2 times 2 is 4 times the cube root of 2 because of this one right here. Okay? Now, question is, what about that negative that was originally there? Well, I know a negative's got to be part of my answer. But it's also got to be inside as part of my answer. It's got to stay in there. So the question becomes, is this correct notation? And the answer would be no. This does not need to be there. This one does. Okay? So all the memory at the beginning, and I on purpose, I threw you for a curveball because this is how normally what we would have learned, we would have brought forward, but that was a way of thinking about it. This is the way we actually have to apply it. Really all it means is that negative needs to exist, but we need, in this case, to be keeping it in that radical. We only needed to take it out in order to think of cubes of 128. So my answer should be written as 4 times the cube root of -2, and we've got the final. So what about the cube root of 125? Now the good thing here is I've already gone over that I memorized this, but we can prove it. That the cube root of 125 is just 5 because I end up with a group of 5s, 3 of them. So what that means is I'm going to take that out and place it on the outside of my radical, in this case, the cube root. Then I have x to the 7th. Well, x, and I'm going to write it below, x to the 7th is the same thing as x cubed times x cubed times x, because if we have the same base, we're just going to be adding the exponents. So here's a group of 3, here's a group of 3. So I'm actually going to be taking 2 of those out, and then I'm keeping 1 one x inside of my cube root. Well, 5 times x is the same thing as 5x squared times the cube root of x. And that would be my final answer. Now here we've got the cube root of y divided by the cube root, the cube root of y divided by 16 is the same thing as the cube root of y, which I cannot simplify. Y does not have an exponent, it's just y, divided by the cube root of 216. But this does have a cube root. Let's look at it. I'm going to write it a little bit lower. 216 is the same thing as 2 times 108. 2 times 54, 9 times 6, 3, 3, 3, 2. So I have a group of 3s and actually a group of 2s. So I'm going to take that 2, just because I'm putting it in numerical order, I'm going to put it outside. I'm going to take that group of 3s, put it on the outside, and then keep 1 on the inside to equal the cube root of 216, which is just 6 times 1, which is just 6. So what we get as a final answer, by the way, all of this went up here. So what we get as a final answer is the cube root of y over 6 is the same thing as the cube root of y divided by 216. You know what to do. Ask the questions. Let me know. Until next time, take it easy.